Have you ever experienced the name of Jesus? I remember when I was coming from Columbus, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, my group had sung in Columbus, and I was going to school in Atlanta at Emory University, and I had a Ford Explorer. And I don't know if you remember back in the late 90s, those Ford Explorers had those bad tires on it, and a lot of people were killed. Well, I had one of those trucks, and I was headed to Atlanta, and it was raining, kind of like it was this evening, and my truck hydroplaned, and my car started spinning around, and when I first started, I saw cars everywhere, and all of a sudden, it was as if I were in the movies. It looks like they all disappeared, and all I could do, I didn't have time to pull out Greek and Hebrew and pray, you know, like the deacons used to pray back home. All I could say was, Jesus. One word. And when I called on the name of Jesus, my car, it spun around in a circle, and it went into the median, and it halted. Can I submit to you, Jesus pushed the cars back. Jesus stopped my car. Jesus saved my life. There was power in the name of Jesus. And I don't know where you are in your life, in your mind, in your spirituality, but I want to submit to you that there's power in the name of Jesus. And while we're in a season celebrating the birth of Jesus, it was a human story in many ways. A woman had a baby. People saw the little baby. It grew up 12 years old, like a little kid. Ministry really didn't start till he was 30. A human story. But while it was a fully human story, it was also a fully divine story. Are you hearing? So tonight, I want to speak to you just for a few minutes from the subject, the gift of God. That gift that was given to us wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger, a human story, a little bit, not a glorified human story. We think of it in glorified terms now, but a baby born in a stable, lying in a manger? You mean the kind of manger that cows eat out of? A manger? Really? This is almost a subhuman story. A peasant girl. She wasn't a queen. But I love the book of Luke because the way it tells the story, it really highlights Mary. The story in Matthew really highlights Joseph. But when you look at Luke, it really draws out the fact that she was a peasant girl, innocent girl. A lot of people didn't know her name. So when they went to Jerusalem looking for a place to have the baby, no wonder they shut the door and said, there's no room here. Now, wouldn't you say, if you have any kind of human courtesy, you would say, oh, she's pregnant, she has to have a baby, why doesn't she have our room? We'll double up with somebody else. But she probably looked rugged. She probably didn't look too good having traveled down there so far. Nothing about her reminded her of anybody. Oh, I remember when I was little, my dad was a school teacher in all those small towns, so I went to Dairy Queen one night. And I wanted to get some ice cream. I was about 16 years old. And hadn't long had a checking account and didn't have the cash. I wanted to write a check from my Dairy Queen, right? And they weren't taking checks from a lot of people. And when they got my check, they said, let me take it to the manager. The manager came out and she says, Antipas Harris. Are you Mr. Harris' son, the school teacher? I said, yeah. She said, oh, he'll be fine. Except that, because my dad had a good name. The name was recognizable in town. But I want to submit to you that Mary didn't have that kind of familiarity that allowed her to have access to the better situation. So then she was pushed outside with the animals. Can I say she was homeless? didn't have a place to have the baby. A baby, a gift to the world, was born that night, and the world didn't even know it. Sometimes we overlook the gift because we don't understand its package. Are you hearing me tonight? Just the other night, Micah and I, we do this thing, 12 Days of Christmas, where we give each other gifts for 12 days. It can be a piece of paper with something written on it. It can be something big all the way up to Christmas. So this is something she started. So the other night when I got home, there's a little red envelope right on my side of the bed, and she said, "That's for you." And I looked at it, and it looked like an envelope with maybe a piece of paper in it. It didn't look that significant, but when I opened the package to see what was in it, are you following me? It had the nicest, cutest little statement on there that made me smile. It's amazing the joy that can come in small packages. It's amazing how sometimes something looks as if it doesn't mean anything, and then you pick it up and it means everything. Repeat after me: the small things that count. Now, where I'm going with this, now I told you about the story of Jesus. Now I really want to focus on John. John does not give the narrative of the birth of Jesus. The book of John doesn't. But it says something very frequently that I thought was insightful. If you look at the story of the birth of Jesus in Matthew and in Luke, it never says that Jesus is a gift. Matthew talks about him being his name shall be called Jesus and Emmanuel and all this. And Luke focuses on the fact that Jesus was born in a manger, and the shepherds come and see Jesus. Going back to Matthew talks about how after Jesus was of age, there were 3 guys who came from Herod and brought gifts and gave them to Jesus, but it doesn't emphasize the fact that Jesus himself is actually a gift. But if you look in the book of John, although it never gives the story of Jesus' birth, but it does talk about the gift of God. Right? In John chapter 1, it tells us, in chapter 1, let's see here. Verse number 12, Jesus gives those who believe in him the right to become the children of God. In chapter number 3, God gives God's very best when he gives his only begotten son. Say gift. In John chapter 4, where Martin read tonight, Jesus offers water that the woman would never thirst again. Let me just pause there. In the book of John, Jesus has needs to go by Sychar of Samaria. And there he sees a woman in the middle of the day. He stops and talks to the woman. The woman is there to draw water out of the well, right? Jesus sits at the well and asks the woman to give him some water to drink. And then the woman, seeing that he was not one of her folks, she being a Samaritan and Jesus being a Jew, she called the whole scenario into question. Now, you might say she was actually flirting with Jesus. At any rate, there was a little bit of a conversation going on there on how would Jesus offer her, Jesus asked her for water when she's there to draw water out of the well. And Jesus says to the woman, but if you knew the gift, say gift, of God, you would ask the one who's asking you for water to give you water, and I would give it to you, and that water will spring up out of you to everlasting life, so that you'll never thirst again. So John emphasizes the fact that Jesus is and has a gift for the world. But sometime when we have a gift, we despise the gift. We discard the gift. We don't take advantage of the gift. And this is what John wants to emphasize, is that Jesus came to his own, and his own didn't receive him. But to as many as received him, to them he gave power. He gave power. Say gave. He gave power to become the children of God. He gave them power. Repeat after me. Power is a gift from God. Now, we're not talking about dominion power, or from where I'm from, we used to call it Georgia power. We're not talking about the power in the society, the power of government. We're talking about the power in prayer, the power of lifestyle, the power of belonging. Some of us, our families have never been there for us. Some of us, we walked away from our families and abandoned them. So we don't have a sense of belonging. But to as many as received him, to them he gave power for what? To become the children of God.